Today on Adorama Live on No Film School, we dig into how to capture the best image and why Atomos is changing how you're going to capture those images with Jeromy Young, the CEO of Atomos. Plus, we have an exciting announcement and latest news from Canon. This is Adorama Live on No Film School. Welcome to Adorama Live on No Film School. We are here on the floor of NAB 2019. My name is Steve Pierce. I am your host. Okay, we're going to do that intro one more time. We had a little bit of a camera mistake. It was my fault, not your guys. We're going to do it one more time, okay? Here we go. Going back, we're going to count it. Today on Adorama Live on No Film School, we dig into how to capture the best image and why... All right, here we go. Count it down for 10. 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Today on Adorama Live on No Film School, we dig into how to capture the best image and why Atomos is changing how you're going to capture those images with Jeromy Young, the CEO of Atomos. Plus, we have an exciting announcement and latest news from Canon. This is Adorama Live on No Film School. Welcome to Adorama Live on No Film School, where we talk with video professionals and filmmakers about techniques and technology. I am your host, Stephen Pierce. We are here on the floor of NAB 2019 in Las Vegas. And if you're not familiar with NAB, it is one of the most innovative shows out there. Every year there are humongous innovations that are announced at this show right here in Las Vegas. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to speak to one of the most innovative companies out in the game right now, Atomos. But first, I am super excited that I get to get hands-on and show you a brand new line of lenses from another innovator, Canon. We are going to take a look at their brand new Sumire lenses. Please welcome to the stage here on Adorama Live, Tim Smith from Canon. And we are going to look and dig in, get hands-on here with the new Sumire Prime lens. Tim, thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
So this is the baby, right?
This is one of them. This is one of 7, but yes, this is one of them.
Okay, so what is the characteristics, and sum up for me what Sumire is and what the goal of it is.
Wow, good question. Sumire is, first of all, it's pronounced Sumire, so you're very close. It is the Japanese word for a flower. And we very specifically chose that word because this lens, like a flower, gets more beautiful as you open up. When you start rolling off of 4 all the way into the 1.3s, the image will change. There's much more nuance in the image. You'll start to see the bokeh change, which you would have seen in the video that we just ran. The bokeh goes from a round, more conventional bokeh to a more cat's eye shape. Flares increase. Skin becomes much more soft and flattering. So it's a beautiful lens, wide open. As you roll back up to T4, around a 2.8-2.4 split, then it becomes more conventional, like the C&E lenses that we've been making.
So the C&E, and that's exactly what I've been seeing in the footage, is that when it's wide open, that's really where it's home. Right?
Yeah, that's where this lens was designed to live, wide open, up a couple of stops, where that effect is most apparent. We already have a set of lenses that can give you this tack-sharp, beautiful image, but what we really wanted was more creativity in the image. We wanted character in an image.
So tell me, what's the difference between Sumire,
yep.
and the C&Es from an engineering standpoint? Like before, Canon's always been warm but very crisp, right?
Yes.
Very, very consistent.
And technically, we still are warm and crisp above T4.
But in this, you're adding some of those more vintage feel, a lot more character.
Right, the magic is in T4 or below. Sort of done engineering-wise, and there are elements, the way the light is dispersed through the aperture to the sensor itself is where the magic sort of happens. And that's where the softer effect, the pleasing skin tone effect takes place, and where the bokeh shifts. We have found over years of putting out the C&Es that first off, the demand for PL was huge. So no matter what we did in primes, we had to make PL. But there are also a lot of PL primes out there already. So we wanted to make one that had its own sort of signature. So that's the PL mount, which is something I've long awaited for.
A native one, because the C&Es
C&Es are EF only.
EF only.
These will be PL. So there's a whole world of cameras you can put this on that we really couldn't address before with the C&Es. So that's the first major change. But we address it differently than we do with the C&Es. It's not just a PL version of those.
So as I understand what you're saying here, the front parts of this is basically, this is the C&E and the front elements,
yep.
Basically. The same lens, the same commercial.
It's the same diameter, the same gearing mechanism. Visually, it's very tough without seeing the logo to tell which one they are. That's how close. They're the same weight, the same dimensions, everything.
And then this is a native PL lens that has the magic in the back element, and that's that open aperture.
Right.
So give me just a tech rundown. What's the series of focal lengths that this is going to be available in?
There'll be 7, starting at 14 up to 20, 24, 35, 50, 85, and a 135.
And all of them are what's the aperture? Is it going to be comparable to the C&Es?
The meat of them, the ones that live in the middle, they'll be identical to the C&Es, but the meat of them in the middle will be 1315. So you're
very fast
in the middle, and then the outliers, the 135 and the 14, will be much slower, which is engineering sort of the way it works. But the bulk of them will be incredibly fast lenses, but at a very reasonable price point for a fast lens like that. So
yeah, absolutely. And price point wise, I'm glad you brought that up. How is this going to compare to the C&E lenses in price point?
There's a premium to them for P&L. The industry always has a premium for P&L. Each one of the Sumire lenses are priced identical. They're selling at $7,410. I don't know where the 10 came from, but $7,410.
Just looked too perfect to be all zeros at the end. Just add a 1.
I think there's a calculator somewhere that said 10. So yeah, easy to remember. 7410, every focal length.
Whereas the C&Es, they are different prices.
They can vary from focal length to focal length.
But this you can plan out and price out your kit. It's all the same.
Absolutely.
How is the availability looking like? When are these going to be able to ship?
We're looking at 3-4 of them end of summer. The meat of them, the ones in the middle that we talked about, towards the end of summer, with a full 7 first quarter of next year. The 20 will probably be the last one to come out based on parts and availability, but you should have all 6 by the end of the year with a full 7 early into next year.
So Tim, is there anything we haven't touched on spec or creatively about this lens that people should know, because it's so hard to find any footage of it? I mean, it's brand new.
Again, yes, and when we shot that demo film, we had 2 focal lengths out of the 7 so far. So not only are they brand new, they're almost impossible. This is a 35. I would have killed for this one a month ago. And there's a 14 over in our booth that I don't think is real. So yeah, they're very hard to get. They won't be shipping until, like I said, August. They represent a huge departure for Canon creatively. It's a whole new direction for us. So it isn't just a new lens for us. It's sort of a new departure. We are known for our crisp, high contrast, beautifully sharp lenses that are perfect for Monday Night Football. They're perfect for live events. They're perfect for documentaries, but they sort of lack a creative feel to them. They're too perfect in some ways. So for us to embrace this concept, you earlier used the word vintage. There's huge demand for vintage lenses, and as sensor sizes go up in terms of resolution and size, you have 8K sensors out there now that are getting so perfect that it's very difficult for a cinematographer to sort of put their stamp on the image. What do they do now as a cinematographer to say, this is the way I make images, this is my look? So glass is where they go. Cinematographers love their glass, no matter, even if they bounce around camera to camera, they love their glass, and we're hoping that they embrace this the same way they have other glass. K35, now that's a lens you can't buy anymore. I haven't been able to buy it for 30 years, it's been out of production. If you bought a set of those back when we last made them, they would have been about $80,000. If you tried to get a used 30-year-old set today, you'd be looking at about $250,000.
Right, I mean, lenses appreciate, they don't depreciate, at least the best ones.
It's pretty unique in this building to find stuff that goes up in price each year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this does, and glass is important that way. So it's a long-term investment, and at $7,400 each, what will it be worth in 20 years?
Yeah. So this is, again, a lens that if you like Canon, and if you shoot crisp Canon commercial live images and you like the tones, you're now going to get extra bang from your buck. You're going to get kind of an older, more nuanced creative feel.
Right, and when you shoot those types of things, the tabletops and the really crisp stuff, you're not really living at 1.3 or 2.8. Right. You're up in the T4, 5.6 range, which is where these will perform crisp, sharp, and beautiful.
Right.
But if I'm doing dramatic television and I'm doing dramatic scenes, or I'm shooting models, or I'm shooting actresses that want to take a few years off, this is perfect at 1.3.
Tim, thank you so much for coming on today and bringing the beautiful Sumire lenses.
Sumire, dead on, perfect. So.
HDR is a buzzword in our industry, but I got to wondering, outside of convention halls like this, do people even know what HDR is? And do they know it could be affecting all of us?
I'm on the streets of New York City asking the hard questions about HDR. What do people know? And do they know it already affects them? Sir, do you know that you already have HDR? Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Irresponsible. American schools.
I'm not a person with HDR, I can guarantee
That's what you think. Did you give her HDR?
It wasn't me.
Don't believe this man. He is a liar. He has HDR. He's giving it to everybody. Symptoms of HDR are much more prevalent amongst men.
It's gonna destroy us all.
It's supposed to be better for us. I don't know.
Better. How can it be better? Computer is very dangerous.
I think it's very clear that HDR is going to lead to World War III. Where are you from?
Australia.
Do you think that Australia would allow HDR to be where it is in America as it is today?
No idea.
Depends who's president.
Ooh. Do you think Obama would have allowed HDR to get as far as it has?
Obama? Obama's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy. Guts, do you think that Obama would have let HDR get this far?
I don't want to talk about it.
I know, me neither. Do you think Obama would have allowed HDR to get this far?
Probably not.
Do you think that Obama is to blame for the rise of HDR?
What's HDR?
Sir, do you think Congress should be approving HDR?
Hell no.
Am I the only one that worries that I have HDR? I have HDR. How does that make you feel about me?
Oh, I like you. You're cute.
Oh, thank you so much. Ma'am, I have HDR. How does that make you feel about me?
Good.
Are you taking a picture? Is that an SDR or HDR? Do you know?
HDR?
Okay, look,
Yeah.
let's go.
If HDR was in your household right now, would you feel safe?
Not totally.
No, but you're American.
Yeah, I'm half-half.
You're half-half.
Yeah.
How would you feel if I was half SDR, half HDR?
I don't know.
I mean, HDR, it's not a good thing, so that's definitely important.
Look at this relic of a bygone era. In 5 years, this will be like the payphone. SDR is dead in 5 years.
But HDR, what?
SDR is dead in 5 years. How does that make you feel about HDR? Who shot HDR? Did you shoot HDR? No? Suspicious. Did you shoot HDR?
I hope so.
If you were HDR, you would not want to be shot, right?
I wouldn't want to be shot if I was QPR.
Oh, QPR. Yeah. Ooh, that sounds even more advanced.
I don't even know what that is.
Now I have to figure out what the hell is QPR. Did you shoot HDR? We always shoot HDR. Bunch of real psychos.
Every year, my next guest seems to be releasing some huge new innovation or some new product line. Jeromy Young has led Atomos not only to be probably the most prominent on-camera monitoring system, but also they released a couple of years ago my favorite device, the Sumo, which I use on set in production and post constantly. But they even go beyond monitoring and acquisition. Last year, at NAB 2018, they pioneered and released a brand new codec called ProRes RAW. So the innovations just keep coming, and I'm so excited again to have Jeromy Young on the show again. Jeromy, thanks for coming back.
Good to be here.
So you guys have had several releases in this new year, but we were looking offset just a second ago at the Shogun 7.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about that first?
So I think everyone knows that we've been pretty passionate about HDR. Who shot HDR? Well, hopefully every camera is shooting HDR.
Exactly, yeah.
Sensors have been capturing it for a long time. We saw the great lenses that are out there to make sure that the image is pristine when it hits the sensor. And we're capturing all the wonderful color and brightness that sensor can deliver. You used to not be able to see that until you got to post-production. You do this 2 stops above kind of thing if you want to be a Hollywood kind of wide dynamic range, film-like finishing production, director. And our goal, 4-5 years ago, we saw Dolby Vision's HD 4000 nit pulsar display. Just walking around here, we're like, what's next? We always do it. Look at little companies and big companies and see where the next trends are going. And we saw this and we were mesmerized. It was like amazing. So we started R&D immediately, and about 2.5 years ago, so we went from a 600 nit, which gives you around 8 stops, your sensors capturing between 11 and 13 after digital conversion. They'll say 15, but there's a conversion loss there. I say 15 stops on this one, which I'll explain why we can do that. So we developed these 600 nit screens, 8 stops, and then we did 1500 nits, which was 10 plus stops, 10.2 or something. And it was amazing. But we only had an edge-lit backlight, which means we can only turn the backlight on full or half or all at once, like every monitor that's not a zone TV or Dolby Vision capable TV. And I'm sitting there going, we have to do this, turn off each part of the image. And what that means is not edge-lit backlight, it means take the LEDs and populate a bunch of them, as many as you can get in there and control them. So we've got 360 direct backlight. It gets a little bit thicker, the screen, but you get to control 18 by 18 pixels. So when we have an image rolling on the screen, we are literally analyzing it on the input, the brightness profile of each one of those 360 zones, and we're turning it on between 1 and 1 million white to black gradations through gray.
All right, Jeromy, I'm very well versed in engineering, but you're making my eyes cross. So you gotta could you tell me that one more time?
Okay,
like
so normally the backlight is about 50 LEDs across the top here.
Right.
And you got to turn it on all at once, and it reflects and through the LCD.
Right.
Okay, and that's how we get the brightness.
Correct.
What this is get rid of that, and put LEDs directly behind as many as you can. Some of the TVs have 2,000 zones when they're 55 inch. And what the zones means is you can turn off and on. I can have this one at super bright and its buddy's half. And then I can have 10%, and then I can have 1%. And what does that give you? Shadows. It gives you gradations. It gives you the equivalent of an artist drawing a face and then shadowing the cheek, and suddenly you're like, that's a human. That looks amazing because the light looks amazing.
Do you mind if I see that for a second? I just want to give it a look. Yeah, so I mean, even like you can see right away, like the colors are just unbelievable. Like within, I mean, honestly, the whole thing is mesmerizing. It looks almost animated.
What we've realized after developing it, took 2.5 years to develop, and literally we've just finished a month ago of the whole development. The colors are richer, but it's that shadowing that gives you this depth of field in the image, which is very real. So it actually looks like what I'm seeing here. And what that means is your exposure and your focus and it all becomes a lot more what you see through the viewfinder, rather than this kind of compromise where you know what you saw in real life and you're just trying to keep that intent through the creative process, right, through the finishing process.
Sure.
Well, this means you can really see what it will look like on an HDR TV later. This is an HDR TV at the highest level, and we announced not only this screen, but we announced Dolby Vision support. So what that means is that same analysis we do, we've taken under license from Dolby, their algorithm which finishes HDR movies for the last 10, 15 years. So they've gathered all this data. I think they went machine learning AI on it and they popped out this algorithm. Now, we don't know what's in that algorithm, but we're using it to output to a Dolby Vision TV. And what that means is you can see it on here, and then you can output and see it on set. And why was that important? Because guys like Netflix and all the studios in Hollywood, the directors want to see what it's going to look like later so they can keep that intent through the whole process. And we're enabling that, the first product ever in the world to output Dolby Vision to a TV, which is all tested R&D like only Dolby can.
So what I love about all the things Atomos, and this one feels like it's actually maybe just a touch heavier, maybe it's the battery on the back.
It's pretty similar to the original Inferno, the Shogun Inferno, but we've added a bunch of features in here other than the screen. It's a quad-link switcher.
Oh, right.
4 3G inputs at 1080p 60, so we could be doing this whole production on this device. It quad-links it. You go, I'm recording this one. You say, I cue that one, camera 2, and you go.
Does it also do...
And you fade it across. It's all touchscreen, no faders, just carry it in your pocket and away you go.
Does it also do chunking? So will it record those 4 individual lines, or is it just do
It
switches?
records all 4 as well as the program stream. So it's 5 streams of recording.
Up to 4K or in HD?
In HD,
In
HD 60.
So, and that's something that has been, you announced with the Sumo. When the Sumo came out,
Correct, so we finished it on the Sumo and then we brought it, they'll release at the same time.
Okay, great.
I mean, we want to thank our customers for being quite patient. Asynchronous, we've had switching for a while, but you had to gen lock them, which is a pain in there, especially if you're using a Nikon camera, HDMI or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we probably underestimated the development time to get asynchronous switching working. I now understand why Ross, Grass Valley kind of have a business. It took us a year to finish, but we finished it now, and it is exceptional. And you can take any HDMI source, run it SDI, any clock frequency into the Shogun or the Sumo, and it will sync and play back asynchronously, so they're all lined up multicam.
So there are many, 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 I mean, this is literally mine that we flew in, and DPs have started making fun of me because I literally drag it around in a case on set with me in my car. But one of the reasons I purchased this from the beginning was because you could record multiple lines. So many times I'm directing something with 2 or 3 cameras, and I want to be able to see them, like not only switch between them, but play back and show things and be able to record them both, which is very difficult to do. If you work with cinema cameras, like you press play, it takes 20 or 30 seconds to switch over, and you have to navigate to the clip, and they're hard to, so this eliminates all of that.
Yeah, because we're a computer company, high-speed data rates, big buses, PCI Express, and Thunderbolt outputs to monitors. That's where I'm from. I'm from capture card PC world, right? So we took the capture card, we put it on the camera. Immediately, we've got way more speed than internally on the camera. Immediately, we've got hard disks, SSDs from the computer world to leverage.
Right, absolutely.
And immediately, we can throw most of the processing out of the camera into where photo went, into RAW processing, hence ProRes RAW. But it's all about HDR. RAW just means we can process HDR better, cleaner, at higher precision. The monitor means you can see it. The output to Dolby Vision means the director can check it. And then the finishing goes into a ProRes RAW ecosystem that is growing. And we've seen at the show. Last year it was us, DJI in the Inspire 2 drone, and Apple, Final Cut. Right? It's Apple's format, but that was the gang. And then the next is their responsibility is to grow the software ecosystem because they're the computer maker. My responsibility is to grow the camera and on-monitor quality of that system. So we've announced 12 cameras, 2 more, so 14 now, 2 more from Nikon over HDMI RAW. We announced at CES, so you can use a Nikon Z6 or Z7 RAW from the full frame sensor into a Ninja 5 or a Shogun 7, and you are recording the world's most amazing footage at very low cost. We're talking a $3,000 to $4,000 scenario with lenses. There's a filmmaker's kit for $4,000, which you guys are selling.
We're actually giving one of those away on the show after one of our daily
Go
raffles.
to Adorama.com.
Exactly. And you can also see the show schedules at Adorama.com. We are going to be looking at the Nikon Z6 and 7 tomorrow. So actually, would you mind handing me that? This is a great transition. I want to talk about, this is the Shinobi, correct?
Yep.
So this is another release that you all just came out with, and this is not a capture device.
No. A lot of our customers are like, look, I love your products for the main camera, maybe your higher quality camera, bigger sensor camera, and then you might have a couple of, B-roll and C-roll cameras. Those B and Cs, you're not going to use that much, and to keep the cost down on a production as you're growing your business, just monitoring the HDR accurately has been a big request from our customers. So we took the screen technology off the Ninja 5 and all that we'd put into that. We removed the recording. It took off $400 off the price, $300 off the price. So now you can step into true HDR monitoring from the guys at the top of the game at only $399.
Exactly. That's where I was trying to go with the price point here. This is a 5-inch monitor,
correct,
right?
It's a 5-inch monitor. Great for those medium-sized cameras. Great for definitely the mirrorless cameras, all coming thick and fast from the Japanese makers. And then we've added SDI to the Shinobi SDI version to then run that back to your Sumo or your Shogun. So we're trying to build that ecosystem, but a guy walking around doing interviews where the internal recording is probably okay for a quick turnaround, he can still monitor and expose correctly for HDR, which is the true, I think, talent in the people who are doing HDR properly. They know what they're looking at through these type of products.
I completely agree. And so this is what is exciting about this is the price point to me, because first of all, you have such great monitoring. A normal 5-inch monitor is going to start like the reputable brands, and I own a few of them, are like, they're going to be right around $600-700, right? So the fact that,
or more,
yeah. So the fact that you have, and they don't even do as simple touchscreen settings as Atomos does. So that's what's truly gets me about this, that I really saw, and I was like, well, because I don't really use it for capture other than reference, because I own 2 Alexas, and that's what we shoot. We shoot in camera. But what I use them specifically for is documentary. We'll come out and I'll be shooting, very quickly trying to capture something, and you need to be able to look and see what's in the highlights, and HDR is wonderful for that. HDR monitoring, because you can flip right over, run up the highlights, and recover them and see what you're missing.
Yeah, and that's what our slider
quickly.
on the original Shogun, because we had that backlight only, right? The edge backlight. What we could do was take the backlight down and show you the shadows.
Right.
Or crank it up and show you the highlights. And inside that process, we realized if we can change this technology, we could merge those 2 ends together in one image like Dolby do.
Right.
And that's what you see in the Shogun 7. So as we roll out that technology to multiple products into the future, 5-inch is a bit tough with the backlit LEDs and power, but very surprisingly, the zone backlight, half the zones, or when you see an image, most of the zones are dark in most cases. Like if I look at you, all this is dark and you're bright here.
Right.
All of these are really toned down, in power to give you gray or the lower shadows, which means your power consumption's less. So we're getting really good power consumption from the new screen, even though technically it's a lot more LEDs. However, we're only turning them on when we need to. So you get a lot more power saving from that.
What's the feedback been on, you announced ProRes RAW last year. What's the feedback and the growth been across Atomos?
We've done over 50,000 units in a year of the models that were supporting it, of those 2 models, of Sumo and Shogun Inferno at the time. These all of our recording products do ProRes RAW. And as I said, there's now 14 cameras. I've made a statement in our press release that I expect more than 20 cameras by the end of this year. We have some privileged information on that. I can't say who, but there's definitely a lot of HDMI RAW capable discussions going on with many camera makers. This industry is going to change dramatically in the next 6 to 9 months. And what our role in that is helping expand the ecosystem. Apple's just announced Ios, the editor, supporting ProRes RAW. They've announced Colorfront, they've announced Telestream, they've announced Pond 5, swapping of footage in ProRes RAW. You'll see a quote from me on the launch of Pond 5's announcement this week. And what you're seeing is different parts of the ecosystem of production being ticked off with ProRes RAW. This is not a new strategy from Apple. When ProRes came out, it was a decode format only. Sound familiar? ProRes RAW is a decode format. And what you're seeing with all these people supporting ProRes RAW and ProRes, and you'll see it being supported on multiple different platforms of computers, is ProRes RAW is the new ProRes. Old ProRes becomes the delivery and storage
And the archive.
And the archive format.
But it's going to expand.
Whereas it was H.264 or 5 or a camera codec, and then it was ProRes for online. Now you just swap those out. Now it's ProRes for keeping it and keeping the quality, you know, 422 or 444 or something, but you start with ProRes RAW, and all of those processing steps that used to happen inside the camera, you've got creative control over. And that's what won in photography. You know, Lightroom, everyone uses that.
Right.
Or Photoshop to move their image around. They don't let the camera do it anymore.
Right.
So what do the camera makers do? They make a plugin to let you stay in Nikon's world or in Canon's world, but you also can go into computer world and do it bigger and better, more precision if someone's making that software.
Right.
Which means we're in computer land for video production now, not in imaging land where it's more film-like production. This is more computer. And then once we head there, then it's automate the hell out of it.
Right.
Right? With
Well,
machine learning, etc.
We actually had an opportunity, or I had an opportunity this year. I'm not sure if everybody knows the true power of ProRes RAW, so I actually got to go out and test ProRes RAW.
Did you?
And see how it works. Steve, I'm here on set today looking at ProRes RAW that we are going to talk about how to set up and acquire it on set. I've also chosen for today a Panasonic EVA1. I'm going to take simply into input 1 here. You'll see input, in the back of the Inferno. And I'm going to go into the back of the EVA1 here into record out. So one SDI cable. If I go in and I go into my recording format, you can see I can change DNX HD, Cinema DNG, ProRes, everything you expect. But now available is ProRes RAW in 2 different types, HQ and RAW. So now we're going to capture a lot of dynamic range footage that's going to have a lot of shadows, a lot of highlights. We're going to underexpose some shots and overexpose some shots so we can really show the power of what you can do in post-production with ProRes RAW. Okay, now we're going to look at how to integrate ProRes RAW into a post environment, and we're using Final Cut Pro X on an iMac with a LaCie Thunderbolt RAID. It's going to play back our media, and I have a Sumo here as my second monitor. It saves overexposed image very well. So that means as you're shooting and you're shooting through windows, you can expose for your subject and not have to worry about the details beyond. You can get those back later. Let's look at a clip that we overexposed that has a lot of movement in the highlights. But look here. All this smoke that we are looking at, and this is at 240 frames per second, is all just totally gone. You can look, he has water going here, spraying, and smoke coming through, but you can't see any of it. This is exactly what ProRes RAW really excels at. I'm going to jump into my info, turn off both the LUT and the RAW to log conversion. Go to color, add color wheels. Looking at this image, I actually am pretty happy with where the shadows are. I'm going to drop them just a bit. Really all I want is the highlights. So here we go, let's pull our highlights back, and now you can see that as I've done that, now you have all the detail of these highlights back. And again, look how easily this plays back. It's playing back in real time, and I'm getting all this adjustment very quickly for a shot that, just again to reference where we started. This is without recovering the highlights, and this is with recovering it from ProRes RAW. What happens whenever we go massively overexposed? We've lost all detail. Only thing still staying here is basically the shadow, the absolute blacks, his glasses and all this. Let's see what happens when I pull the master all the way down. Look at that. It is pretty unbelievable. Look at where this shot starts. Again, total unusable mistake. Imagine turning something like this in and trying to sell it. You would be in big trouble. This is not something that you'd be able to pass and feel good about. Whereas if you just had this, now no one's upset. You've recovered your client, you've recovered your situation. So, Jeromy, I had a lot of fun getting to test that out, and I think, as we said, it'd be kind of camera dependent. We were talking as it was airing there. I noticed that the higher overexposure you did, obviously we went massively overexposed.
But it was still there.
Yeah, it was still there, which was really impressive. The farther we went out, a little extra saturation we got in the highlights, but you say that might be camera dependent. We were using the EVA 1. That seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's definitely what the camera's doing is we're testing the first kind of maybe 5 or 6 steps of a general processing pipeline from the sensor, where when you get a sensor image, it's unbelievably bad. But the cleanup of it is pretty easy if you made that sensor, and if you know which lens is on it. You can map the lens distortion as well as clean up all the pixels. So what we receive is this, no dead pixels, no bright pixels, it's all cleaned up, but then that stops. So we need the color matrix, we need the brightness matrix, which we know from the camera makes because we're very close to them. And then it was pretty interesting to watch this evolve. Each camera behaved very differently on that RAW, and then they do a little bit more processing to give it to us, and it was better, and it was really good because we were kind of in their pipeline, whereas before they just go H.264, and that was it, or RAW. And then you have to use their plug-in or whatever, right? So this is a really big step in the industry, and watching you go through it, that's how we're like kids in a candy store. Like, I wonder how people are going to use like that monitor. I can't wait for guys like you to see it, because and you'll go, I need to use that because at least I know my HDR is going to be perfect. You put a couple of things up on that slide I just want to comment on before we finish.
Let's go for it,
You said that the Mac monitor is SDR. In there you wrote, my Mac monitor is SDR. I'm going out the AJA box to a Sumo for editing, right? So that's the right way to do it. We are showing at our booth, and you'll see this announcement tomorrow, but I'm showing it today. Just want to make sure I get airtime for those announcements, so we kind of stagger them over a 3-week period. We have, now that we've got the Dolby algorithms down, we've released what I'm calling, and I haven't finalized the name, but this evening I will.
I love it.
It'll be on the press release.
Tonight, we're getting the first time. We're getting the test run here, guys.
I'm thinking you guys will be the first to know. I'm thinking it's called Origami.
Origami.
Yeah, so here's how it goes. And it's pointed at this kind of workflow, right? So we're capturing more and more metadata at the camera because we're getting raw. Okay, so we need all this data to do the processing inside our unit so you can see the picture. So we're getting image stabilization data, we're getting GPS data, we're getting camera control changes, we're getting time-based stamps on every frame, we're getting sub-frame analysis of line scanning as the sensor's rolling. I mean, it's insane what's happening. At the same time, we're announcing Origami Ios, which is your project input device. It shows you all of the Atomos on your network, and you can make sure that you're just tagging and flowing as you go. That then, together with all the data that you've got, so we can use the accelerometer information from the phone, we can use the GPS information from the phone, we can connect to other apps for other information to throw through, you can do transcription on the fly. It's amazing, right? Because we've now got this phone and tablet sitting right next to our units, controlling everything. Take all those files, imagine it's a multicam shoot that we're already capable of, right? Sure. Take all those files, automatically upload into our Origami Mac OS player. It organizes all your files automatically, shows you, all the things creative guys and girls really struggle with on getting a project to the finish line. And then you become this manager of files and projects and not this creative person, right? So we want you to remain creative. So this all happens for you automatically, scene, shot, take, however you did it, right? Names properly. Then it brings up all the metadata in categories: camera, lens, on-set, location, Atomos data, inputted data, project data.
And that's also populating from your smart device. From the file.
From the file that we put in that data into the .mov file. This is the cool bit. So we work with Apple on inserting this metadata, all our metadata that we're capturing from the camera and from the unit, and then we present it to the user. But not only do we present it to the user, then we use it to make decisions. So we've got all this metadata sitting in the file. It's time-based, it's static, everything you can think of. There's no sidecar, because you can lose sidecars. Sidecars, have you ever seen a motorbike with a sidecar? Never ends well for the guy in the sidecar, right?
Yeah.
The guy on the motorbike probably never ends well either, but he's a little bit more risky there because he could break away. So we don't like sidecars. So we worked very hard inside QuickTime and Dotmov to get all that data in there, and people can stay with their current workflow. Really important in our opinion. So then you play it back. When you're playing it back, we're decoding ProRes RAW, we're decoding ProRes 444, ProRes 422, all the flavors from Apple, and then we're giving you the option to do things with it. So you take all that project and you say, all right, I want to create an Avid project. Origami. Amazing amounts of steps, but this beautiful thing sitting on the other side. Your whole project's ready to go. You want to go to Adobe? Boom. You go out. If you want to go to Telestream, if you want to go to Vimeo, if you want to encode to, we'll hook into Compressor, we'll hook into a bunch of, so you'll have this one app. It's not a color correction app. It's not huge amounts of deep dive. It's an organization, get yourself ready, and then go where you want to go.
So you're taking metadata, embedding it into an MOV file.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of like kind of what you'd get from a raw file of a
Absolutely.
photo.
Absolutely.
Right? And you're going to then, the Origami is the idea of it is going to optimize.
It's going to unpack it.
And send it wherever you decide. That's kind of what I'm.
Yep, and you can go to Dolby Vision, you can re-encode it for wherever you want to go. Here's the bit I saw on your thing. You said it was an SDR monitor. That Origami player, come over, I can turn any Mac into a Dolby Vision HDR monitor, just like I do my monitors, but inside our window. Okay, so just like we did a 600 nit Shogun that mapped 8 stops, we've got a 600 nit Mac that maps 8 stops.
I got it. Now I think I got you.
And now as the nit values increase and the quality of the monitors come out on the computers, we can map more and more stops. And is it our algorithm? No, it's Dolby's. So it's completely consistent with what you're seeing on the TV. So now you can use your Mac to a very high level, your MacBook Pro, all with the free application that we are giving you with the unit.
Right. Well, Jeromy, I said at the beginning that you were releasing all new innovations every year, and you've definitely not disappointed again in 2019.
Thanks, dude.
Well, thank you very much, Jeromy, for coming on again.
Appreciate it.
I also want to thank Tim Smith from Canon for coming and showing us the Sumire lenses, and I want to thank you all for watching. All of the episodes of Adorama Live can be seen on nofilmschool.com, so please go check them out. Join the conversation by leaving a comment. I'll see you on the next episode of Adorama Live on No Film School.